Good morning, Nautilus sisters. How are you? Can you hear me okay? Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. They have actually not begun the live stream themselves at SpaceX because they are about a half an hour behind schedule. Oh, excellent. How are you? I'm going to be doing this without my webcam. Nobody needs to see me, and it's 4:52 in the morning here. Yep. Still no broadcast. Thank you, Naudley. Somewhat less stressful, but still a very, very busy time. I'm glad to hear that you're doing fairly well. I'm looking forward to seeing this. We are going to witness if they launch, just as a recap for everybody. The Super Heavy booster and the Starship upper stage combined system fly for the 5th time. The goals are to test the improved heat shields and designs around the grid fins or the fins on the upper stage to enhance the ability of the vehicle to successfully re-enter. And on the Super Heavy booster side, the bottom bit, the goal is to, if all of the guidance and navigation and system status indicate it's possible, return and fly back to the launch site and capture it in those arms. And if that attempt goes wrong and they are making the landing attempt, it will probably be quite spectacular. I want to keep an eye on SpaceX's announcement so that we don't miss the launch of their actual official live stream. So we've got some more interesting video to look at. It looks like they are live.
Months since our last Starship flight, and we've got a big morning ahead of us.
Flight 5, has a few primary objectives and one big first. We may be attempting to catch the Super Heavy booster. The teams at Starbase have been hard at work around the clock upgrading hardware across the entire tower with focus on the chopsticks, the 2 mechanical arms that will reach out and catch the returning booster. We're only going to attempt the catch if everything on the booster and tower checks out after launch, but either way, excitement is definitely guaranteed.
Definitely. Today's Starship features a completely reworked heat shield with stronger tiles and a secondary layer, which is an extra layer of protection for the ship that will protect from any of the that will help protect if there's any missing or damaged tiles. Now, not only did we replace the entire heat shield with our newest generation of stronger tiles for today's flight, we'll also be flying a handful of aluminum tiles that are there to help the team understand the thermodynamic environment during re-entry. If you were with us for Flight 4, you'll know how hard those heat shield tiles work during...
All right, I'm going to lower the volume so we can look at the pictures. And we can chat. Dead Horse, how are you, buddy? Good to see you, my friend. Before I lowered the volume, were you able to hear their audio adequately?
And we'll have to wait and see. Keep your fingers crossed.
Dead Horse, how you doing? How is your wife and family? Thanks for being here, buddy. Indeed, Nodley, they are usually spectacular.
Help us to keep improving the vehicle for recovery and reuse.
Now, thinking forward to when Starship is flying regularly, it will take the heaviest payloads to space, land humans on the moon again after more than half a century, and ultimately
Excellent, thank you.
Further into space than ever before. And getting there will
Doing the audio capture, given the way that they are streaming this, is always a pain in the butt.
scale operations at Starship.
Good morning, Black Raptor. How are you, buddy?
Now, the faster we can improve and evolve Starship to achieve
Excellent. I will turn it back up when we get closer to launch.
this vehicle from day one to realize a vision of having
I just, if it's at its normal volume, I'm sort of forced to scream over it.
spread across thousands of flights. This future will
Black Raptor, I hope you and your family, your girlfriend are all doing healthy. You're all healthy and doing well.
So, buckle up your seatbelts because here we go. The moon and Mars are not nearly as far in the future as you may think. In fact, we're planning to send starships to Mars as soon as 2026.
You might be familiar with the Starlink logo, and there you can see it on your screen. It's an iconic representation of the Mars transfer orbit, also called the home and transfer orbit. This is how fundamental Mars is to SpaceX. This transfer window, or time
Take away one of those rings and it would
opens every 26 months and is only open for about 2 to 3 months at a time for a vehicle with Starship's power. And it just so happens that the next Mars transfer window opens in 2 years towards the end of 2026.
Yeah,
Man, it is so hard to get to Mars.
Is similar to how we launched to the International Space Station, where we time launches to match the station's orbit. If we didn't do this, we'd need more propellant and more time to get there.
Exactly. So the first opportunity that we have to fly starships to Mars, we plan on doing it. These first flights to Mars will be uncrewed and will test the reliability of landing intact. If those landings go well, the first crewed flights will follow soon after.
So it's safe to say it's all happening.
So key distinction there. Elon Musk and SpaceX are claiming that they're going to be sending the initial Starship flights to the planet Mars without anybody on board. And pending the success of those uncrewed operations, they will then, in fact,
Catch mechanisms.
launch human beings to Mars.
This morning, our teams have completed stacking the second launch tower, which will be coming online next year. Having 2 operational launch towers paired with ships and boosters rolling off the line in our new Star Factory will allow us to increase our flight cadence and test even more rapidly. And just a few miles away from the 2 towers, things are moving really fast at the heart of Starbase. Star Factory is rapidly coming online, with production teams already using the space as construction continues. The 1 million square foot Star Factory brings many parts of the manufacturing.
Reminder, we're looking at a feed coming out of South Texas, Padre Island.
Work as possible earlier in the build process, with the goal of eventually producing hundreds of starships a year.
That's crazy. It's such an impressive building. So, for example, teams can assemble an entire nose cone structure of a ship into a single piece and work on its internal systems all
It's
in
pretty
one
incredible.
piece.
During
So if you're working on
most of my
something,
lifetime,
question about
the only 2 places a spacecraft of this class
the building and
would
go
launch
the person or
would be primarily out of Kennedy Space Center in Florida at Cape Canaveral, and then
next to that person
uncrewed with nobody on board, there would be launches of very large spacecraft out of Vandenberg Air Force Base on the West Coast. And then there were smaller launches out of Wallops, Virginia, and even smaller rockets would tend to launch from places in Alaska and a few other locations, sounding rockets, things of that nature. And now we have fairly regular launches out of the south coast of the United States as well.
Sure that you follow us at SpaceX on X, and I have a feeling it's going to get pretty busy.
Oh, that is definitely an understatement.
And it's definitely going to be very exciting today. So with that,
SpaceX does plan to launch Starship out of Florida as well.
Starship features 2 major parts: the ship, which has 6 Raptor engines, and the Super Heavy booster, which has 33 Raptor engines. The current iteration of Starship is essentially an experimental vehicle flying for development. With a few planned upgrades, Starship will have 3 times the thrust of Saturn V, plus the added benefit of full reusability. Starship
3
2
times the thrust of Saturn V. in its current configuration.
Able to lift more than 200 tons to orbit. The amount of mass we're able to launch per rocket is crucial to creating a self-sustaining city on Mars.
Now, to get a sense of how big Starship is, let's start with the average size human, which is about 2 meters high. Towering over our average human is the length of the Millennium Falcon, which comes in at 35 meters. Our Falcon 9
Yes, let's measure it in Millennium Falcons.
attached is double the size of the Millennium Falcon, standing at 70 meters. And nearly twice the size of that is the fully integrated Starship at 121 meters tall. The ship itself is about 50 meters tall, and the Super Heavy booster alone stands about 71
Nice to have you here, Malugu. Malugu, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Very nice to have you here. Welcome in.
Can't imagine it being taller than that.
The saga continues indeed.
First stage has a diameter of roughly
Thank you for joining us.
times that of Falcon 9, and with 33 much
33 Raptor engines.
Moving up the vehicle, the
Those are optimized, of course, to operate
three sea-level engines
in the atmosphere of Earth.
to operate in the vacuum of space.
And the ones on Starship, as she just said, are vacuum engines designed to be operated in vacuum.
The ship is also
They have a much larger bell on the engine exhaust nozzle.
control the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric flight and enable a precision landing.
To reach full reusability, ship must survive entry not just once, but over and over.
It should be 7 o'clock in the morning in Texas, about 7:03.
And development for
It's 05:03 where I am, so 2 hours earlier. It's still dark here.
ceramic tiles designed to insulate the vehicle.
That is a very pretty, if not surreal, scene with all the vapor from the condensation.
And naturally, the tiles are designed for rapid reuse with no refurbishment between flights.
I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Starship features a completely reworked heat shield with stronger tiles and a secondary protective layer. This promises to increase our chances of Starship making it through a controlled
Starship experienced burn through and damage to the controlling fins there on the top on the last test flight 4. It was still a spectacular accomplishment to get as far as they got, and the transmission of video during the attempted reentry was truly extraordinary, almost sci-fi.
Central Time from Starbase, Texas, cleared the launch tower and went on to accomplish several major milestones and firsts.
So here we go. This is Starship Flight 4.
Super Heavy booster lifted off successfully and completed a full duration ascent burn. I love the view of the sound waves there. Following separation, Super Heavy booster successfully completed its flip maneuver, boost back burn as well to send it toward the splashdown zone, and it also jettisoned the hot stage adapter, as you can see there. We don't have to jettison that adapter in future iterations because it'll be a different design. Now, as you can see here, the booster is returning back to Earth using those hypersonic grid fins to steer it towards a precise landing in the Gulf of Mexico. The footage that we have coming up here, there it is from the buoy. I still remember seeing this on X for the first time, and it was so incredible to see that booster coming down, ending its flight with a soft splashdown 7 minutes and 24 seconds into the flight, and the crowd went wild.
And so did we. Starship's second stage Raptor engine successfully powered the vehicle to space and placed it on a trajectory that would re-enter less than one orbit later over the Indian Ocean. And following a coast phase in space,
This footage is just extraordinary.
successfully making it through the phase
Just extraordinary.
aerodynamic pressure and demonstrating the ability to control the vehicle using its flaps while descending through the atmosphere at
What an extremely hostile environment.
Starship once again enabled real-time telemetry and live high-definition video throughout every
Welcome in, Tony from Australia. Good to see you.
all the way to the flight's conclusion.
Thank you for joining us.
With Starship, with again the crowd going bonkers.
I know it's evening,
Starship igniting its three
but g'day, g'day, g'day.
and executing the first flip maneuver and landing burn that we had seen.
Love to
since
have you here.
the altitude campaign. And that
Love
was
to have you here.
the soft splashdown of the ship in the Indian Ocean 1 hour and 6 minutes later.
And we were all glued to the monitors watching the little flap that could the whole way down. Seeing the landing burn and splashdown was an incredible moment for the entire SpaceX team, and we'll be looking out for many more of these incredible moments today.
All right. So
Look at the condensation collected on the surface.
new test objectives
Just extraordinary.
The booster back at the launch tower.
In about 18 minutes from now, Super Heavy will ignite its 33 Raptor engines and lift off from Starbase. A little more than 2.5 minutes into flight, the Super Heavy booster will separate from the ship in a hot stage separation. After that separation, the booster will perform a...
For those of you, I don't know how loud it is for you folks. It is normal volume in my ears, which is turned way down from the actual standard volume. She just described this as a hot stage separation. I just wanted to take a moment to explain that for those of you that may not be familiar with terms of rocketry. Hot stage means that they are going to fire up the engines on Starship, the upper stage, before the two vehicles have actually completely separated. That's a change from the very beginning of this program, where they first separated the two vehicles, got them apart with separation increasing, and then started the engines, the Raptor vacuum engines on the upper stage. But they have shifted now. I think this is the third flight where they've been doing hot staging.
For this flight test, we do not expect to recover any hardware from the ship. With the exception of Falcon, this is no different than what happens to most rockets flying today that are expended, meaning that they fall into the ocean after completing their mission.
These drone shots are just extraordinary. As the sun is rising there over South Texas.
In fact, we've landed Falcon boosters 352 times to date.
Oh, man, I hear you say that number, and that is just wild. I still remember the...
She just said that they don't intend to recover any of the hardware. That was their stated goal in on the last flight, Flight 4. However, without telling anybody in advance, in terms of the public, they did go out and they did pull a bunch of hardware from the Super Heavy booster out of the ocean and recovered it for examination.
Lighter weight and integrated hot stage intended for full reusability, which will mitigate the need to jettison the hot stage like we'll do today. Similarly, even though ship recovery is not expected...
All those dark surfaces are heat protection, thermal protection systems. You'll note that they are only on one side of the Starship. It is intended, or it is designed to come in on that dark side, on that, let's consider it a belly. If it were to come in upside down, it would very quickly disintegrate.
In the middle of the action, he's just a few kilometers from Starship on the pad. How's it going, Dan?
It's going great, Jesse. Welcome back to Starbase.
Doctor, very nice to have you here. Welcome in. 15 minutes before scheduled launch time.
Flight controllers are counting down to our liftoff at 7:25 a.m. Central. We are a little bit later in our window. The main reason is we're working to clear out the range. Have not been tracking any technical issues so far to preclude that launch. So 7:25 a.m. Central, 12:25 UTC is where we're marching down to. As you can see, we're actively loading propellants on board Super Heavy and Starship.
Absolutely, Nodley.
Liquid oxygen for the oxidizer.
It goes from being basically the side of the spacecraft to definitely becoming the belly. I wonder what that is going to do to a Starship after repeated flights, because there's got to be an imbalance or an asymmetry to the amount of thermal and physical stress a Starship will experience if it is flown repeatedly and only one side of its fuselage, its structure, is exposed to the plasma and the heat stress of reentry.
Another reminder, if we need to hold, we have a built-in spot at T-minus 40 seconds. We can hold for stuff like if we need to finish clearing the range or if any other technical issues.
The chemicals listed there in the propellant are methane and liquid oxygen. For those of you that don't know, not a zero emission fuel combination, but relatively low emission, and a good combination of energy density versus the volume and the weight of the fuel. And it's also fairly stable and safe.
Before our next attempt. But good thing we're time, counting down to 7:25 a.m. Central.
I'm really struck by the condensation cloud hugging the surface of the complex there. Not the stuff we see boiling off to the left of the spacecraft and further left of the tower, but along the ground. And again, the biggest, most spectacular potential event on this flight will be the return of the Super Heavy booster for an attempted landing recovery with those arms you see at the top of the tower. It's going to come back, and if they allow it to proceed, they're going to kind of give it a bit of a hug with those arms. They'll actually just swing into a position such that the fins. There we go.
There are three primary gates that will be in play. In order to proceed, automated checks have to indicate we have a healthy booster and a healthy tower, and the flight director must issue a manual command, which is informed by manual checks from the flight control team. If this command is not sent prior to the completion of the boost back burn, or if automated health checks show unacceptable conditions with Super Heavy or the tower, the booster will default to a trajectory that takes it to a landing burn and soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico.
Now, thinking to the future when we're operational, after a booster returns to the launch.
Thank you so much for asking people to hit the like button. I appreciate you very much. About 10 minutes to go if they stay on this schedule.
If everything on the booster and tower checks out after launch. And of course,
if they pull this part of it off today, it will be amazing. And if they attempt it and they don't pull it off, it will be a spectacle.
Things have to go right in order to line up the booster catch. So don't be surprised if we don't attempt the catch today. Either way, today's flight will generate data that will continue.
So lots of disclaimers there about being out of spec and aborting the attempt to do the recovery with the chopstick arms.
Oh, I was going to say excitement, but that's a really good reminder.
Now, if we do make it to a catch attempt today, Super Heavy may generate a sonic boom upon its return. And that's basically a brief thunder-like noise that we hear when an aircraft or other object travels faster than the speed of sound.
Thunder-like is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Land landing in Florida or California, or even some space shuttle landings may have heard one of these.
Generally, the only
Space shuttle landings actually have a characteristic double sonic boom. I covered 3 of those at Edwards Air Force Base, and they caught me by surprise all 3 times, despite the fact on number 2 and number 3 that I knew well in advance that there would be a sonic boom. They were so violent and so fast that it just always surprised me. I'm going to drop that all the way down because they're playing some music, and I don't want to get a copyright strike if their music is not cleared. Sorry about that, folks, but you should still be able to hear me. Their music is probably cleared for their stream, but I can't be assured that they have it cleared for public distribution.
Continue. We plan to demonstrate ship-to-ship propellant transfer, which will be important in preparation for Starship taking astronauts to the moon as part of NASA's Artemis program. SpaceX will perform one uncrewed demonstration flight before NASA's Artemis 3 mission, which will be the first human surface expedition since 1972. Also in preparation for missions to the moon and Mars, we're gaining tons of knowledge from
I brought the audio levels up on the stream. Can you hear the SpaceX commentary clearly?
Dawn was the the first of up to 3 missions in the Polaris program, which is demonstrating new technologies, conducting extensive research, and will culminate in a flight of Starship with humans on board.
After nearly 5 days in orbit, Dragon and the 4-person Polaris Dawn crew safely splashed down on September 15th off the coast of Florida, completing the first human spaceflight mission of the Polaris program. The Polaris Dawn crew performed some incredible firsts during their mission. Dragon and the crew reached 1,408.1 kilometers, the highest Earth orbit ever flown, and the farthest humans have been from our planet since the Apollo program.
The crew also performed the first ever commercial EVA, or extravehicular activity. And as you can see there, they were wearing the new EVA suits that we developed here in-house. This was an incredible moment to see Jared and then later Sarah emerge and perform this EVA with Earth behind. Now, in addition to this incredible spacewalk, they also conducted about 36 research studies and experiments from 31 partner institutions, including NASA.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate the feedback.
They also tested Starlink laser-based communications in space. The data gathered from Polaris Dawn missions is invaluable, much like the data that we're going to see after today's flight test of Starship. So we're coming down
I want to make sure that you can hear it without it drowning me out.
Let's check in with Dan.
7 minutes to go.
Hey, thanks, Kate. So yeah, we're right at about 7 minutes away from launch. The main thing we are still working is that range clear. Again, we have to make sure boats, airspace, everything is cleared out of the way for our ascent corridor, basically the Gulf of Mexico, where we're launching through before we can actually launch. And so we're working on clearing out just a few more boats. We do have a window, remember. So if we
it sounds like they
at like a T-minus 40 seconds, we can hold for several minutes, allow those boats to get out of the way, and then we can launch. Our window is from 7 to 7:30 Central, so we don't have a huge amount of time today, but we do have some margin if we need to work with it to still get off the ground today.
It sounds like they actually have some
prop load on both vehicles, header tanks.
Show-stopping maritime traffic in their launch corridor, so they may in fact not be able to make their launch window today.
And then just 30 seconds later for booster. One kind of cool thing to talk about, so the folks in launch control behind me, after liftoff, they're going to have some pretty special tasks today if we're going to go through with the catch. They're going to be doing some really detailed inspections just visually of all of the different tower systems, a lot of those things that we upgraded, just to make sure that we are in the right posture to actually proceed with the catch. So they'll be working kind of fast and furious behind the scenes to inform the flight directors.
Absolutely.
To send the booster back. So if we
the flamey end
being sent, that's going to be just the roof's going to come off. That's going to be really exciting.
Somebody's going to get to push a button on the loud button.
If we don't go today, as you guys talked about, there is a chance, and if we don't send the booster back, we'll do a landing burn and a splashdown in the Gulf, and then that's just another landing burn to...
For those of you that are really into the space stuff, there are 2 more launches scheduled today in North America.
As of right now, we're coming up on 5 minutes. There is a chance that we'll hold or extend into the end of our window.
There was actually even another potential activity which has been postponed.
We are just about 5 minutes away
that is related.
So,
but the 2 additional launches which could come off are a flight of the Blue Origin New Shepard suborbital capsule and also a Falcon Heavy launch out of Florida. The event which was postponed was the separation of the Crew Dragon spacecraft from the International Space Station. That was postponed because of the weather forecast in the recovery area in Florida.
To reiterate, we do not, while we do determine an acceptable level of
look forward to it, Tony. Look forward to it, buddy.
In order to learn as fast as possible, we accept no compromises when it comes to the safety of the public or our team. So that is to say, this is only the 5th of many future flight tests of Starship before it becomes fully operational.
You might remember the Starlink panels that are incorporated into Starship, and you can see them there on your
Hopefully
screen.
we're gonna
These
get this launch
rectangular
going.
panels on Starship's nose cone. Starlink brings us the epic views in space and on re-entry, and also helps deliver us the
So those
critical flight
rectangular
data
panels
engineers
there,
need to
those are
continue
Starlink
development.
antennas.
In addition to enabling our rapid iteration on Starship, Starlink is also enabling life-saving communication here on Earth. SpaceX is sending tens of thousands of Starlink
That
kits
looks
in
like
response
it
to
is a
hurricanes
camera.
Helene and Milton, and providing free service through the end of the year to support recovery efforts. The Starlink team also worked with T-Mobile to activate our direct-to-cell satellites to provide basic texting on T-Mobile and emergency alerts for all phones and carriers of those in affected areas.
This really
If a
looks
phone
like a
connects to your
science
Starlink
fiction movie,
satellite,
doesn't it?
It will have 1 to 2 bars of signal and show T-Mobile SpaceX in the network name. SpaceX's
G'day,
direct-to-cell
Doozy.
constellation
Welcome
has
in.
not
Thanks for
been fully
joining us.
deployed,
Nice to have you
so
here.
these services are being delivered on a best effort basis.
Starlink is enabling life-saving communication here on Earth.
Look
and
at the
continues to
condensation
help us
cloud
push
hugging the
limits
ground.
in space. In the short term,
It's
by providing
even sort of
great
creeping
views
out
and
over the
real-time
shoreline
data
there,
on our
over the
next few
coast.
flights, particularly through re-entry, which
Ah.
historically is a blackout period
Bear,
for all
good evening.
communications.
How are you, buddy? G'day. I know it's nighttime. Two of our family from Australia are here.
All right, so we're coming up on 2 minutes 30 seconds away from launch. We were hearing like there was a pretty good chance we were going to hold it T-minus 40 seconds, but surprise, now it sounds like we might not be. So we are just a little over 2 minutes away, so a couple more things going to be happening. We did just close out our propellant load on the ship and the booster, so 10 million pounds of propellant on that vehicle.
10 million pounds of propellant on the vehicle.
Clearing out all of the lines that are.
It's going to be emptied really fast.
Propellant to the vehicles. Those get cleaned out or cleared out on the ground before we lift off. We're doing some final checks on the vehicle, the thrust vector control that we're going to use to steer it, as well as the guidance system doing its final alignment, just a lot of our final checkouts. But we are starting to hear that it looks like the range is going to be clear at our liftoff time of 7:25 a.m. Central, 12:25 UTC. So that puts us 1 minute 20 seconds away from launch.
33 Raptor engines.
Still not tracking any technical issues.
6 Raptor engines.
The only thing that's been
Raptor vacuum engines on the upper stage with big distinctive bells on the engine nozzles. Look somewhat different than those. 33 we see on the Super Heavy booster.
As of right now, we are
1 minute away
from liftoff.
This is going to be spectacular, folks, if they go. Test Flight 5 of Starship. They did not
go for launch.
They did not stop at the 40-second hold mark. It looks like they're going to light the candle. Prepare for quite a show, my friends. Prepare for quite a show.
20 seconds away from liftoff.
T-minus 5, 4.
Good luck,
3,
SpaceX.
2,
Thanks for joining me,
1.
my friends. Let's watch aviation and space history.
We have liftoff.
Seem to be pitching over a bit there to the right. Spectacular drone shot.
Booster after chamber pressure nominal.
Good morning, Henderson. Welcome in. Thanks for joining us. So far, things look fairly nominal. There was a bit of a pitch over right as it left the tower that looked a bit out of spec to me, but maybe that was normal.
Booster and ship, avionics power, telemetry nominal.
33 Raptor engines.
What a sound of the crackling air. The engines all appear to be functioning. I don't see any dark circles.
Now pass through the maximum aerodynamic pressure, the most stress the vehicle's going to see on the way
They
uphill.
certainly seem to have solved the engine damage at launch issues they've had.
All right, our next major milestone coming up, it's going to be hot staging. We're going to see the engines ignite on ship to push it away from the booster.
Pretty extraordinary colors there coming from those Raptor engines with their Methalox engines. Methalox fuel combination.
All right, so hot staging is going to be
Good
the next
morning,
thing
Mike.
coming
How
up.
are
First,
you?
we're gonna
Welcome
see the
in. Thanks for
boosters
joining
engines
us.
Start to shut down all but 3. We're going to do what's called most engines cut off instead of main engine cut off, because 3 are going to keep going, and then we're going to see the engines on ship ignite.
So Starship's going to fire up its engines, the upper stage, before they've actually
Right now,
separated.
the tower team is doing their go, no go.
This is a lot of
We
flying
might hear
stainless
some
steel.
really good words soon too. All right. Can still see it up behind me. That is one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen.
Look at the
in my
grid fins
entire
moving.
life. Coming up on hot staging next.
Ship engine
There's
startup.
most engines cut off.
There we go.
Stage separation.
Hot stage.
Booster
Stage separation. Hot stage separation confirmed.
I don't know if they're the
Ship
V3
under
engines,
tilt
Mike.
Power. I'm seeing 6 out of 6 Raptors lit. Hopefully I got a booster on the way back to me. I'm going to send it to you guys in Hawthorne.
Reminder,
Oh man!
if
that
they
was
get
absolutely
a
incredible.
green
I
light,
loved
they're
how
going to
the
try
crowd
and
came
land
right
the super heavy
Crowd here in
booster
Hawthorne all
very,
the way,
very,
at that
very
first
shortly.
view of the blue flames from the booster, as you can see there. First stage currently performing, or excuse me, is now making its way back to the launch site. Again, we are.
Ship avionics power and telemetry nominal.
The booster and the tower are both performing automated checks to make sure we are go for the booster to return to the launch pad for that catch. And once those are complete,
Regardless of how this goes, this is history being made right here, my friends.
And we did hear that the tower is go for catch. So that was one of the big criteria we were looking for.
this view
We'll
here.
wait to hear that the. We'll wait to hear that.
This looks to be a view of Starship, the upper stage.
Beautiful view here from the ship.
And so exciting to hear that we got a go for booster catch. That means it's going to be a really exciting morning.
They got a
Again,
go for
the
booster catch.
Is making its way
Something
back
very
towards,
extraordinary is about to
now
happen,
land,
my friends.
in order to make that catch attempt in the tower.
So incredible to see these views. You can see the ship on the right-hand side of your screen. All 6 Raptor engines are under full power. Once again, the booster is making its way back to the launch site. We are going to try and catch it using the chopsticks on the launch tower, the exact same tower that it just launched from.
Something just separated from the vehicle.
Yeah, and the booster.
Starship on nominal
Guys,
trajectory.
I can confirm the command was sent. For the
That looks
booster
like
to
the
come back.
hot staging.
That is incredible.
That looks like the hot staging ring.
It's pretty much right overhead of us, and we can see it starting to come down.
I can't wait for us to hear the sonic boom through Dan's mic.
Right.
That is going to be incredible. It was so cool to hear the liftoff. And so once again, a successful on-time liftoff of Starship Flight 5.
Lots
The
of
ship,
venting going on. This is the
has
super heavy
separated
booster
from
we're
the
looking
booster.
at.
The booster is there on your screen. It is making its way back to the launch site. We are going to attempt the catch using the chopsticks. We did hear the confirmation that the command was sent to the tower. We are go for catch.
And in order to
things are going to start happening very, very, very quickly.
Landing burn. It's going to happen in 3 phases. We're going to land at 13 engines. Burn
Coming
off
right down through its own smoke,
we can see it
its own
coming down
exhaust.
through the plume.
Booster coming in hot for booster catch.
We're going to ignite 13 of those Raptor engines, and this view is incredible right now.
What an extraordinary sight.
You can see how fast this vehicle is moving on the left-hand screen.
Landing burn has
13
been
engines.
ignited. We're now down to 3 Raptor engines. We can see those.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is incredible. Incredible. I cannot believe what I just witnessed. I cannot believe what I just witnessed. Oh my God. I got chills. I don't know about you, friends, but I just got the chills.
We have successfully caught the Super Heavy booster back at
That was extraordinary.
What an incredible view!
What an extraordinary thing to see.
Kidding me?
Dan,
Wow.
I don't know about you, but we're losing our stuff up here.
Guys,
I hope my
sorry,
audio
like,
didn't distort, my
even
friends.
this day and age,
But my
what we
goodness,
saw-
we just saw history. We just witnessed history.
Wow.
Dad, your view must have been insane. We are still going wild over here over this.
Folks, this is a day for the engineering history books.
Holy cow.
This is a live view of the Super Heavy booster as it has just
They still have a little bit of
back at the very
residual
same
fuel
launch
burning,
tower
or
that it
there's
just
a
came from.
fire
Dan,
burning.
I love this. You are reflecting exactly what everybody else here in Hawthorne, except maybe a little bit more because you got to see it with your own eyes.
How was that?
We got it. I mean, like, I can't even describe that. Oh, by the way, main engine cut off, ship's in orbit, but
And don't forget, there's still the upper stage
I'm, like,
flying.
shaking right now. That was.
Yeah, this is not,
Yeah,
I mean,
We
it's
did
just-
indeed.
It's hard to
My
believe
friends,
that-
we just shared history together.
All right, exciting news there. It's hard to believe that, Booster isn't the only
Dead
excitement
Horse,
that
I
we
think
have
you're
today.
right.
Just confirmation there. A gorgeous view of planet Earth behind the ship. And it is now in the orbit that we expected it to. This is just an incredible
I don't know
day.
if you
Live
could
views
see the
there
tower in the
as
wide
booster
shot, but it
vents,
looks like it's
the
leaning
pressures
over
there.
somewhat from the
That is a
burden
live
of
view
holding
from the
on
top of the
to the
tower,
weight
right by
of the super heavy
chopsticks.
booster.
I am still
Look
in
at the
disbelief. I'm trying to
small
catch my
area
tears
that it
just like
has
the chopstick
to hold
top
on
booster.
to.
It has been
It's just the grid
nonstop
fins.
since liftoff. And we are
AKM,
also excited
you're
for everything that's been
probably
happening
quite
so far
right.
this morning.
You're probably
With
quite
the
right.
booster having completed its job for today, we are going to take a short break for the next 30 minutes. We'll return back at T plus 40 minutes while the ship continues to coast before re-entry.
Oh man, and as with previous flights, Starlink may actually enable us to talk with the ship through re-entry with no communication blackout. We of course are still testing Starlink.
So they're
going
going to take a little bit of a break, so I'll turn their audio down.
If we do have views, we'll be sure to bring those to you
Just
live.
in case
Views
they...
or no views, we'll see you back here at T plus 40 minutes for coverage of Starship's re-entry, flip maneuver, landing.
Just in case they fire up any music. I hope they're not going to actually turn their broadcast off. I think it's to eliminate the need. Yeah, there's music going there. I think it's to eliminate the need, Dead Horse, for landing gear and the complexity and the weight of carrying the landing gear. They have no landing gear on Super Heavy with this configuration. The weight of the landing gear is instead transferred to the tower. that burden. My friends, we're going to see reentry with plasma and all of that stuff in about 30 minutes time, if you can stick with me. But I'm just besides myself. I cannot believe what I just saw with you folks. If you're enjoying this, in order to get YouTube to recommend it to others, I would appreciate it if you would hit the like button on the stream. It would certainly help get the stream recommended to others and the channel, and it's free. So chat, come on. While we have 30 minutes to chat, which of you thought that was going to actually be successful? Thank you for the love. I appreciate that. I honestly thought it was going to end in a spectacular disaster. That was my thinking. It was just not because they couldn't eventually do it, but because it is such an unbelievably complicated, unprecedented evolution. Getting a spacecraft of that size and weight to park itself in a spot that small, moving at those velocities with such a small area to grip, combined with the timing of the arms moving, I just felt they were not going to be able to get it on the first attempt. Yeah, 100%. Well, we got to give credit where credit's due, which is to his extraordinary engineering team and the leadership of Gwynne Shotwell, who runs SpaceX. Actually, he gets most of the exposure, but there's a lot of very, very, very smart, very competent, very hardworking people that actually do the execution, as is often the case with any organization. Did you, Tony? You thought they were going to get it on the first attempt? I think any potential outcome was a possibility. I think they were reasonable. I don't think that Elon Musk actually thought they were going to pull it off on this attempt. But man, I mean, look at how small the grid fins are. And I wonder what the wear and tear is going to be on them if they have routine operations. That is an extraordinary amount of weight, and those things have to maneuver. They have to move in flight. Well, there goes a chunk of something flying away. These are live views, by the way, from Starship via Starlink. This vehicle is in orbit, well, not quite in orbit, heading over toward the Indian Ocean, where it's going to make the attempt to re-enter and have a soft splashdown under control in about 25 minutes. Look at that shot of the Super Heavy booster hanging there from the chopsticks. Just incredible. Gotcha. Hey, as I say with my other opinion pieces, everybody's entitled to their opinion, just mine. From an engineering standpoint, I thought it would be a bridge too far for the first attempt, but I am very happy for everybody involved that they succeeded. It's truly extraordinary. And if SpaceX has its way, they're going to do test flight 6 faster in a shorter interval of time than it took to go from test flight 4 to test flight 5. So we should be seeing something like this again fairly soon, possibly including, if they succeed on the re-entry of Starship, they may possibly attempt to land Starship as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Starship lands the same way with the chopsticks on an operational basis. It's going to be held on those fins there. That's essentially a stainless steel. Absolutely. Cat in a shoebox. Love the username, by the way. And it will involve both the Super Heavy booster and the Starship, if memory serves. Definitely the Super Heavy. But Starship itself doesn't have any landing gear either, so it's got to be the chopsticks. Today, however, they just simply want to splash down in the Indian Ocean, but they've got to make it through reentry first. Yep, I'm sure there will be. There'll probably be a couple of other folks that were down there with very high quality, very high resolution, very high speed cameras. That's a chunk of something floating away that doesn't appear to be ice. I wonder what the flat earthers are thinking right now when they see this video. I mean, what an extraordinary conspiracy there must be to create this footage and to have the spectacle of the launch in Texas, if it's all to perpetuate a fallacy that the Earth is round, right? Ah, thanks, Kat. Kat, are you a member of our community that we know from Twitch, or is this the first time you have discovered the show? Some folks have different usernames. I do a live. If you don't know, I do a live show over on Twitch 3 nights a week, and lots of folks have different usernames on YouTube. I don't want to dox anybody, but just want to say hello and welcome you if you're new to the community or you're a regular. Yes. Did you, Bear? Oh God. Yeah, Dead Horse. Dead Horse is one of our dear friends from Twitch. He's trolling the flat earther theory here. You think so, AKM? Yeah, I have a shirt that I wear on the Monday night streams that I made because I was getting a lot of flat earther comments on the space stuff that I was posting to YouTube before I started streaming, actually. And it's intentionally designed to be distressed, fatigued looking, so that it's not very brightly printed. It's meant to look like an old T-shirt, even when it's a fresh copy has been printed. But it says on it that I love science like flat earthers love eating glue. Dead Horse, the fact that your name says Dead Horse Dead, this was all just filmed by Stanley Kubrick, when Stanley Kubrick is also dead. is a chef's kiss. Oh, well, thank you. Well, Kat, it's really nice to have you here. It's really nice to have you here. I'm not as well known as some of the bigger folks on YouTube for this, but I've shot 3 space shuttle landings when it was flying at Edwards Air Force Base in person as a member of the press. I'm a photographer and filmmaker, and I do stream, as I say, over on Twitch, where we have a really great community, and it's a pretty big community for discussions of aviation, space, and defense, but mostly live streaming a video game about naval warfare. So that's where some of these folks here who are regulars know me, and why we're on a kind of a first username basis. And if you've ever watched the History Channel, Discovery Channel, or military channels, you may have actually seen me on some programs over there over the years. Nothing recently, but quite a few shows over the years. And normally the webcam's on, but I got 2 hours sleep and got up and did this at 4 something in the morning my time. So yeah, no webcam today. Plus, you didn't need to see my face. You probably wanted to just see the rocket fly and the landing attempt. Yeah, Dead Horse, I would absolutely love to do this. I mean, I'm in Southern California, so Edwards Air Force Base was obviously quite accessible to me, and this is in Texas. One of the CCs about 2 or 3 months ago had actually mentioned, one of the World of Warships community contributors had mentioned a few months ago, it would be fun to get together and go cover one of these. And I said I would absolutely love to do that, and suggested that we actually rent an RV and get some of the folks that could make it all together and have it be a multi-day road trip from some part of Texas, like maybe Dallas-Fort Worth area where I would fly in, and go down to South Texas with gear and with some of our friends, and hang out and live stream and cover it over several days. So film the actual flight, film the attempted landing at the chopsticks, and also film some in real life stuff, hanging out with folks that many of you know, and the behind the scenes and stuff off the side. I would love to do that, just requires sponsorship. Yeah, that's why we would get an RV. We would get an RV, and it would be a multi-day trip. It would make for some interesting content. Caravan, yeah, absolutely. Well, depending on the musical tastes of my friends and my colleagues, caravan may be necessary. We may not want to be in the same RV together for 2 or 3 days. There's some good folks in our Twitch community, of course, that are also based in Texas. But I know of at least, I think it's 2 streamers that are in Texas. Hoppa Fodder is there. I think Sea Raptor is there. Feel free to throw out other names if you have them at the tip of your tongue. No, despite my age, Bear, I still have bladder control. I hope I wasn't screaming. Like, I hope I didn't overmodulate the audio. But I was truly extraordinarily excited, and I was excited to be like, I felt like I was virtually sharing it with you folks in the living room, watching TV with you, with snacks and stuff with us. I'm really, really glad we got to share this. Yeah, I don't know if Sohn is in Texas as well, and I think 7 is not. I think 7 is further east, but there might be one other Texas CC, and as I know, there's members of our community that are also in Texas, and if there was room and the desire, there'd be no reason that they couldn't join as well. Sone's in Florida. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, GP is further up in the middle of America. That's Game Prodigy, but Sone's in New York. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Hoppa, I think, and Raptor even expressed a desire if it could all be put together. Those guys would be fun to hang out with. Oh, yeah, there you go. Folks from the company as well. They probably wouldn't be able to get away for multiple days. Bogsy and Ensconce, that is. But maybe. The big problem with a project like that is just that they could end up it could end up being scrubbed a day or two, and that means you're stuck there trying to wait it out, or basically not getting anything for the effort except camaraderie and deductible expenses. Kat asks, interested in advancements on hypersonic flights. It's interesting because there's a lot of stuff that is already hypersonic is one of these terms that's become exotic, despite the fact that it's existed for a very long time. There's quite a few things that have flown in the hypersonic flight regime for a very, very long time. You think so, Bear? So something that can maintain or sustain a hypersonic flight is probably what you're asking about, and that would be somewhat new and novel. And I say this because the velocities achieved by this spacecraft are in the hypersonic flight regime. So I don't mean to be overly pedantic about it, but it is in the world of science and engineering, it's important to make sure that as a science communicator, I'm trying to be accurate and give people a sense of perspective on where things have been and where things are and where they're going. So having said that, missiles that can operate at sustained distances in the hypersonic regime are somewhat new. It's rumored that there are operational systems in what we used to call the Eastern Bloc, out of Russia. I believe the credible reporting is they're not so operational. They are, in fact, very much not operational, very much like that flying wing drone that was recently dispatched by, what was it, an Su-57? They're flying, it's in flight test. It's being developed, but definitely not a system that is ready to go right now. The key reason to pursue these, for those of you that are not aware of it, is that they are more difficult to counter and to target because they're moving so fast for so long as they are approaching you. So to shoot them down is more difficult, and to stop them. We are like 10 minutes away from re-entry here, if I remember correctly. Like when Space Shuttle was re-entering, it was in the hypersonic flight regime. When the X-37 re-enters, it's in the hypersonic flight regime. When the Crew Dragon or uncrewed Dragon re-enter, they have to pass through a hypersonic flight regime. That's why I'm being so pedantic about it. Space flight in particular, almost always when it involves launch into space and then re-entry, involves these very, very high velocities. Just so beautiful. We are so lucky to live on this planet. Elon's vision for rapid point-to-point travel across the planet isn't a hypersonic space plane, as I understand it. His vision is to use the system we're looking at on screen right now, point-to-point with a Starship or something derived from Starship. So basically, some form of ballistic flight where you launch up and you travel across through the vacuum of space, and then you come back down, are recovered or captured with something like the chopstick arms, can be rapidly reserviced with your cargo, including any passengers removed, and refueled and launched again, very much like an airliner. There are a lot of flaws with that idea when it comes to a mission that involves civilians, because the stresses that are associated with these launches, the amount of G-forces that occupants would experience are not for your typical passenger boarding a Qatar Airways or Singapore Airways or United Airlines flight. Your auntie or your uncle are not going to be able to cope with those kinds of loads. It's a very high G activity. More likely would be advancements in quiet supersonic technology to move humans and goods across the planet, as we see exemplified by Boom Supersonic and by NASA's parallel but independent Quiet Boom supersonic demonstrator program that they're getting close to flying. There's a little commercial for Starlink there in the upper right-hand corner. Hashtag not sponsored. What are we seeing in the far horizon? Is that the moon? Do you folks see that? I don't know if you can see my mouse, but there's something in the frame right here. Appears to be the moon. Bear. Could be, Mike. Could be. It's not very obvious from this angle, but I did notice, and I mentioned it earlier, that the tower appears to be leaning over slightly in the direction of the Super Heavy booster from the weight. Okay, there's some activity going on here. Let's listen back in. Well, there's music. Don't want to play their music. Look at the debris pouring out of the cracks and crevices on this thing. The surface of the spacecraft is surprisingly industrial. Like it's not super smooth. It's got all these exposed bumps and what appear to be rivets and fasteners and bolt heads and and nuts. It's just extraordinary. There's a big chunk of something floating right over here. I don't know if you can make it out. It is not pure white. It's somewhat discolored. Here's another piece of it, something similar like that. I wonder if it's some sort of insulating foam, or it is a frozen bit of perhaps methane, methane. In other words, it's not the oxygen in pure white, so it's maybe discolored. I mean, I'm trying to imagine what other discolored substance would there be. Well, it's not pure white. I would expect the ice to be white. For example, this looks to me like ice right here and right here. And there was a greenish brown tint to that chunk that was flying out that was very different than this. Let's see if there's any more of it when they reposition the vehicle. So just a reminder, the front part of the vehicle is on this side. The bottom part of the vehicle is on this side. And when they make the attempt to catch this spacecraft, they're going to be catching it on the bottom side of this fin. That will not be today, but this will be the part that they will grab when they try and catch it in the chopstick arms. It would definitely be very, very, very much below freezing, Cat. But it's going to get very hot very soon. If the coverage from last time is any indication, we're going to get to see this thing surrounded by superheated plasma pretty shortly. So the view we're looking at here, I believe, is looking down from the top of the spacecraft to the bottom, or the base of the spacecraft down here. I suspect this is one of the cameras looking at looking up. And it might even be also looking this way to observe and record what's going on with this fin. And again, this is the side that's going to be exposed to the thermal stress and the heating from the plasma. If this side, if it's out of control and it comes down with this side first, it will very rapidly disassemble itself. All right, they're back.
Exciting day so far. Even the crowd here is still so excited. We lifted off from Starbase at 7:25 a.m. Central Time. The Super Heavy booster and ship had a successful separation, as well as a good boost back burn and good separation of the hot stage adapter. The Super Heavy booster then completed the landing burn with 13 Raptor engines igniting and slowing down the vehicle perfectly for Mechazilla to catch the Super Heavy booster for the first ever land recovery of the vehicle.
Those shirts will be collectibles.
We still about 48 minutes, the ship will re-enter. The flap, all the flaps that will today, not that could. The ship will re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. Now, as a reminder, one of the main goals of today's test flight is for the ship to make it through the extreme heat of re-entry and to do so in a controlled manner. We learned a lot about this phase during Flight 4 and, as a result, completely reworked the heat shield, but more on all that in just a minute. Now, re-entry is typically a portion of flight where we don't have communications with the spacecraft because re-entering, it'll be re-entering at about 8 kilometers per second, or about 5 miles per second of roughly orbital velocity. Now, those speeds,
That's incredible
the spacecraft
speed.
moving through the atmosphere results in friction and creates a plasma field around the vehicle. We saw this in action on Flight 4 thanks to Starlink. And
Just
wow,
want to draw
it
your
was
attention. This is a
breathtaking.
diagram that describes the
blanket of
engines
plasma
mounted
ends up distorting
on the
communication
Starship upper
frequency.
stage.
So it's not uncommon
These
to
large
experience brief blackouts in
openings are the
communication, but hopefully that's not the
engines
case today.
optimized to operate in the vacuum of space, while these three are optimized to operate at atmospheric pressures.
Starlink has just kind of been just the unsung hero and the MVP of this test campaign. I mean, it's able to give us data, not just awesome video, but also data in real time as we're going through reentry. I mean, this is something that throughout the history of spaceflight just hasn't been possible. And this is an environment that is so unforgiving, so hard to model, so hard to understand.
When I talk about
And for
the
first time ever,
industrial-looking
we're able to
nature of this
literally
vehicle,
watch
I mean,
as it
look at
unfolds
these
in real
brackets
time,
mounted
get
here.
that data in real time, and we're able to do that.
These
with
are just
Starlink.
dragged through the air.
It's great for us
during
because we
launch
get
and
to see
recovery.
something. We get to see the greatest light
Obviously,
show on the
they're
planet
very
or off the
important.
planet.
I don't know what they
But
do.
what it means
Perhaps
for this
they are a
program,
place where the
we're able
umbilical
to
connected
learn
for
tremendous
fueling
amounts about
and
our
communications
heat shield,
before
our
launch.
angle of attack,
But
everything that we're doing
this
as
is
we're
just
coming in through the
was,
atmosphere at hypersonic speeds.
you know, driven
And
against
it's
the flow of the airflow
can't just
during
thank it
launch.
enough. And also, special shout out, you're going to
Even
see
this bump
some
seems
additional
like
flat
it's.
camera
I know
views.
it's
We've
important.
got
It's a camera of
a
some
really
sort,
amazing team
but it's
of
amazing that
avionics,
this is just
cameras,
sticking out like that.
software people who made all that possible.
It's not all
And
slick
so
and smooth and
hopefully
streamlined.
they're going to give us an even better show on the way in today. As
The
we're coming
speed
in
at which
about
this thing
5
is
times
crossing the
speed of
Earth is
sound.
just extraordinary as well. Look at that.
Yeah, those flaps, Dan, that you see there, that's what's helping.
116 kilometers of altitude.
Approaching the entry interface.
And some good call outs there, preparing for
And descending.
re-entry for Starship. And again, that's what, Dan was
26,666
mentioning, those
kilometers an
flaps on
hour
the vehicle.
in speed.
And if you've been watching us for the last few minutes, you could see that the flaps were rotating around and helping orient the vehicle as it prepares for the beginning of re-entry today.
Yeah, exactly.
It's coming down
Re-entry
pretty
will
quickly.
be enabled by that heat shield that you see on the bottom half. That heat shield is made up of 18,000 hexagonal ceramic tiles, and they are designed to insulate the vehicle during atmospheric entry.
110 kilometers.
At that point in time,
100 kilometers or so, if memory serves, is the Kármán line, the so-called boundary to space, where if you fly above that as a passenger or a crew member, you get your astronaut wings.
Between the flights. And fun fact that I think is just incredible in terms of scale, but the heat shield alone on the ship has a total mass of 10.5
The speed is actually
tons,
going up.
which is
If you look at
crazy
the
because these things are really lightweight.
at the,
they're made out
display.
of ceramic. We have a couple of them here. The one that
It's
I'm
going
holding is
faster and
used
faster.
on flat surfaces as
While
so if you go
it's
that way,
descending rapidly.
because as it's flat. The one that Jesse has is kind of more what you see there on the side.
Yeah, exactly. And having these different shapes, the flat version and the curved version, allow us to cover a lot more of the surface area of the vehicle. Again, we need to protect every
There's
portion
plasma
of it,
beginning to
even,
glow here, folks.
Even those curved
There's plasma
surfaces,
right
and
here.
especially the hinge area. If you watched Flight 4,
Starting to get
is
hot.
really what we want to make sure that we protect. And yeah, Kate, these are very,
Super
very lightweight.
But when you put 18,000 of them together, they add up to 10.5 tons, which is incredible. Now, we did mention earlier that
Prepare
the
for some
heat
pretty
shield has
extraordinary
been
sights.
Completely
Starship
reworked.
has entered the atmosphere, remains on a nominal entry trajectory.
we can start to see that plasma now starting to build up on the side. It's not quite full plasma yet, but we are starting to see that color indicate that the heat is building up on the heat shield.
Yeah, this is such a cool sight to see because you really never really have gotten to see this live before flight.
Before Flight 4.
Yeah. And as Kate mentioned, it's getting a little more red, as you can see there on your screen. That means that heat is building up, but that's exactly what these heat shield tiles are there for, is to protect against this plasma and this really, really extreme heat that the vehicle is going to see for about the next 10 more minutes or so.
Yeah, so the ship will attempt to light the 3 center Raptor engines, and those are the engines that can gimbal or maneuver or point.
Again, I
help
mentioned this
flip the
earlier
ship,
during the show.
Until the engines point
Given
down
how the
so
stresses
that,
that we're now
land
watching
using the
take
Raptor's
place on
thrust
this
in the
vehicle
ocean.
are
So that will happen
asymmetrical.
after
They're
we get
happening on
through
one
this
side of the
re-entry
spacecraft.
period.
I
Again,
wonder
now
what
starting
that
to
will
see,
mean
we
for the
also might start to
longevity
see
of
the
starships
flaps actuate a little
on
bit
an
here,
operational
as the
basis when
vehicle
half of their
controls its
fuselage
role,
is subjected
during
to
re-entry. That was
the
one of
physical
main
and the
learning
thermal
points
stress
from
of re-entry.
Flight 3 was the roll control.
It may be
didn't
designed to
work quite as
accommodate
well
it and
as we
have
wanted
no
it to,
impact,
and you learned that we needed
but
some
when you
redundancies.
impact
So we
one
added
side of a
more roll
vehicle
control thrusters, and we'll see those in
consistently and
action
not the
as
other,
well today,
I would
as
expect
that was
there
a
would be
Flight 3 learning
wear and
that
tear
worked better
issues,
on Flight
durability,
4,
longevity
and
issues.
still enabling that same design today.
Yeah.
Starship has passed through 85 kilometers altitude.
Thank you,
Flaps
Kat.
now
I
have
appreciate
control
that
of the
very
vehicle.
much. That's really, really
Great
kind of you to
call out, as
say,
Kate
and very
mentioned,
helpful.
The flaps are controlling the attitude of the vehicle. And I love these views because it looks so calm. Everything is relative, right? So relative to this camera on the ship, it looks so calm
I want to
and
not
smooth.
get
The
in the
vehicle
way
is
of this
traveling
show,
extremely fast.
but I
You
also
can
would
see
like
the
to help
speed on
provide
the
some
bottom
context
right-hand
when
corner of your screen.
I have something to
Starship
add.
is designed to land on Mars where there are no runways or other humans to help out. So we also want rapid reusability. So we're doing propulsive landing instead of a
And
more
for those of you that are
traditional means
unfamiliar,
like parachutes.
the glowing
And so
we're
we will
seeing
use
is
the
not
engines
fire.
on this
It's
vehicle
superheated
to help
gas.
slow the vehicle down for a vertical landing.
Yeah. Now, entry
This is
going
not
to
like you would
basically
see
happen in
coming
5
off the top of
phases. The first is low drag, that
natural gas
lasts for
stove.
about 3 minutes.
This
Next
is air
high
so
heating,
hot
and
that it is ionizing.
Beginning when heating increases.
Something
above
looks like
the,
we're starting to see
heat rate
debris
breakup limit.
fall
That
off the side of
lasts
the.
for about 10 minutes. We then have high dynamic pressure. Starship will continue to slow down. And
I'm seeing
experience
little tiny
increased
particles
aerodynamic loads during
beginning
that
to come
phase.
off over here.
And that will happen before reaching Mach 1.
Hopefully
about a
that's not
minute
the
after.
structure.
Approaching the peak heating phase of entry, remains on a nominal trajectory.
Okay, so that was phase 2 that he just called out, that I was mentioning. After peak heating is that dynamic pressure around Mach 1, and that will last about a minute after leaving the hypersonic area, and then we go into subsonic.
Another big chunk
and then, of course,
just came
landing
off.
burn. Wow, what an incredible view.
This may mean that it's not going to be able to maintain control.
So amazing, and the colors actually also tell you a little bit about the temperature that the vehicle
I agree
is
with you,
seeing
Bear.
as well. So I think that's pretty cool that we get this amazing
Yeah, Bear,
live visual.
I think you're
A
commenting
live
on
speed,
this.
live visual. The flap,
Yeah, I agree that that
we
is not
have
ice.
More views, more cameras on board Starship, as Dan mentioned a few minutes ago. We are hoping that all 4 flaps will stay more intact than they did last time. We did make some changes to the design in order to help enable
Starship
this.
is now experiencing peak heating, remains on a nominal entry trajectory.
This is incredibly exposed here.
Great news there that Starship is continuing along the path that we intended it to fly. You can keep track with how fast it's going and how high it is above Earth using the display that is there on the bottom
Yep, we're
right-hand
down to
side of
70
your screen.
kilometers in altitude. Speed is now starting to
This
rapidly
is where
fall.
We're really going to see a lot of those improvements from Flight 4 really come into action.
The video
you guys
quality
kinda talked
is
about, so it's called the
extraordinary.
static arrow. Those are
Extraordinary.
kind of the poke out points on the flaps. Those get exposed to some pretty extreme heat environments, and so we added some additional, basically.
I'm curious to know why we're seeing occasional plumes here.
Not just from visuals and stuff
Are
like
they
that, we
changing
had
the
those missing
attitude of the
tile tests
spacecraft
on Flight 4, where we
ever so
intentionally
slightly?
left some out,
if they are, I would expect this to change slightly too, but it's not. This looks very, very consistent. Like it's maintaining an attitude, an orientation that's very consistent, and yet we occasionally are getting these puffs, like that puff that was on the right-hand side.
Is broken, anything like that, we've got essentially backup options. And what we're really trying to do today is do an on-target landing. As we lost the flaps, you lose a lot of your control, and so we didn't land
This
right
part,
on
like
target
that.
last flight.
Maybe that's
This
just
time we're
venting
trying to really nail
from the
target,
propulsion system
within just
into the
tens of
flow.
meters. And that'll just be a really huge step on feeling like we're closer.
But to see that plume
bringing a ship back
and not see this shift at all
there's a lot
is
of
curious.
work before we
Look
get
at how
there,
hot this
but
is.
We just caught a booster.
And beautiful. Right. Oh, that's a
We're
hot
gonna
spot
start
right
looking
there.
real soon at when we can catch a ship.
Right there looks like a hot spot.
So the view on your left is as a helicopter passes by Dan, bound at Starbase. The view on your left is a camera that's positioned near the nose of
I'm sorry
the
to hear
ship,
that, Bear.
looking basically down toward the flap. The view on the right is looking perpendicular to the flap. So we're looking basically bird's eye view onto the flap on the left-hand side, and then a worm's eye view from the side with that view on the right.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Maverick just buzzed the tower.
There was a bit of vibration I just saw here. As they descend, they're
Now,
getting
these
into
views,
thicker and thicker
brought to
air.
us by Starlink, it's incredible that we have this high definition capability. In fact, that view on the left.
So I would expect there to be more turbulence.
Peak heating phase of entry remains on a good trajectory.
So it's only going to get cooler from
So
here.
great news there. Hearing
Peak
that we're
heating
about
has been
halfway
passed.
Through the peak heating phase, like I said earlier, this lasts roughly 10-ish minutes. And we did hear earlier that the flaps have control of the vehicle, so also good news there. You know, it is incredible that we've basically had views the entire time.
Right. Yeah. Thanks
Although
to Starlink.
my memory did black out a little bit after booster catch, so I think we had views. But, you know, all through the coast phase, we had some beautiful views of planet Earth.
This is the
behind
orientation of
ship
the
as it
spacecraft,
was
by
in
the
its
way.
orbit.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on
And
this.
I also do want to point out on your right-hand screen.
Wow,
we've
that
got,
was a bright flash.
A more encompassed view of the flap, as we watched in.
This will
in
give you a
flight
clue about
before.
how in control the vehicle
area
is.
where we got a little bit of
Down
that
to
burn
68
through. This
kilometers.
view, this new
Speed is
camera view
rapidly
on the ship
falling.
will help us be able to visually see more of what's happening in that area. And again, we have improved our heating tiles, and so hopefully we've.
Hi,
protected the
Melissa.
hinge,
Welcome in.
a lot
It is
better this time, so
extraordinary. It is
but
definitely
again,
history in
these
the
views
making.
are
Nice to have you here.
additional, to the data that we get on these flight tests that help enable us kind of put the data that we get in the computer to the visuals that we see and try and align those and use that for improvements in the future.
It's art
Now, we
and
heard a call
science.
out there
It's gorgeous.
saying
It's
that
absolutely
engine
beautiful.
chill has begun. This is an indication that we are starting to flow a little bit of the super cold liquid oxygen through the hardware, through the Raptor engine, specifically the turbo pumps, to help ensure that the hardware is at the right temperature before we give a full push, a full flow of propellant at engine
That's to
startup.
precondition
So,
the
all of
metal
that to say,
in
we
the
are getting
engines
closer to
and
the
their
landing
plumbing
burn.
so that they are
Definitely
not
are.
shock
And again, if you
cooled
look at your
when they are
bottom
turned
right-hand
on.
of your screen, you can see the altitude that the
Which
ship
would most
is,
certainly
and
lead
it
to a
has
failure.
been slowly making its way closer and closer to Earth. We're currently at about 63 kilometers from planet Earth, and you'll see that number trend lower and lower as we get closer and continue through this reentry.
Yeah, this is going to go on for a little, actually a while longer. We have about 10 minutes or so, roughly, before we execute the landing, the ignition for the landing burn, starting with the landing flip. So we're making a
The
controlled
color of the
re-entry. This is
plasma,
one of the
I would
primary
presume,
objectives for
will
Starship today,
change
is to
the
demonstrate
deeper and
another
deeper they
controlled
get into
re-entry,
Earth's
even more
atmosphere,
controlled
because the
than what
nature
we
of the
saw on
gases
Flight
present
4.
will
And
change,
so far, that is looking good.
and the pressure relationships they have to each other.
And then as we as we start to really get lower, we're going to start seeing the atmosphere's effects start to take place, and that's when we'll be dropping our speed down closer to the speed of sound. You'll see the flaps start to maneuver. We were able to do a landing burn on Flight 4, which kind of caught all of us off guard. It was pretty incredible after seeing the flaps survive through. And we're going to try and do another one on this flight today. We tweaked it a little bit, so we're going to try and splash down at a little bit of a gentler angle this time instead of just kind of hit the water and fall over. And the goal with that is try and keep the ship intact, and then if we're able to then get some additional video of it, again, that's just more data. And everything we can see, everything we can get extra, like a couple extra seconds or minutes of data coming from the ship after
Starship has
splashdown.
passed through the peak heating phase of flight, approaching maximum entry dynamic pressure.
All right, so maximum pressure, and I misspoke earlier. Now they are through peak heating. Now they are through peak heating. I misheard what he said. I thought that they had completed peak heating already.
That part of the curve where we're still moving really fast, and the atmosphere is just dense enough that we're feeling the most pressure.
This is like a kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope of art and science. Just amazing.
Looks like we got more views of each of the flaps on the ship as it's making its way back down to Earth. And we did pass through peak heating and still got really good views throughout that whole period. Typically, during the highest heat on the vehicle, we tend to build up a lot.
I can't believe how rock solid the video has been.
Lose, connection or views of the vehicle.
It's just been rock solid, and the quality is amazing.
Throughout that entire process there.
We would count ourselves lucky to see the view in the upper left-hand corner. The fact that the view in the middle and lower left corner is so incredibly clear, let alone the view here on the right.
We're starting to move closer to and beneath the speed of sound, and
it's just crazy.
We're getting live views, we're getting live data. We've got a couple additional tests on this one today where we left off some missing tiles again to test some additional backup layers. We also have,
look at the heating here. It's like red hot coals.
And silvery looking tiles on Starship as well. And those were pretty much standard tiles, but they were wrapped in aluminum. And it was a pretty simplistic, straightforward one where aluminum.
Oh, this looks like we're seeing some burn through.
Roughly the same temperature
right here.
Steel starts to lose its strength.
This looks like burn through.
So
like they're going to lose a flap here.
We see stuff melting. We know.
That's
we know what our steel is going to be exposed to, but
probably not going to survive.
59 minutes since launch, should be coming up on transonic and everything in just about 3 minutes.
Now the views here, we have coverage of all 4 flaps. We can see, so for those that perhaps didn't catch a glimpse of the vehicle before liftoff, there are 2 flaps at the forward end and 2 flaps at the aft end. The larger camera view that is there on the right-hand side of your screen, that is a view of one of the aft end or the bottom end.
Thank you, Black
flaps.
Raptor. Appreciate it.
You can start to see some heat buildup and peeking through on one of the flaps there in the top left-hand corner of your screen.
Seeing a lot more heating here.
Once again, Starship
I would
now
not be surprised to see a structural failure at this point.
9 seconds into
I don't want there to be one,
entering the Earth's atmosphere.
but that definitely does not look like it's going to last,
the surface of the Earth.
and
Now
may not be
44,
functional if it remains attached to the vehicle.
A soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean.
Goodness, look at the glowing.
About, northwest-ish of Australia, and we are attempting to, as we did on Flight 4, make a
this definitely looks like a burn through.
Well as
Starship is at maximum entry dynamic pressure, remains on a good trajectory.
All right, so that is great news there. Like Dan said earlier, this is basically Max Q Part 2. So this is the greatest amount of aerodynamic loads that the vehicle will experience during its flight. It's coming back through the Earth's atmosphere. You know, it was above the Earth's atmosphere in space where there was no friction. We can obviously see heat as a evidence of that friction buildup. The atmosphere
40
is actually
kilometers of
helping to
altitude.
slow the vehicle down. If you're watching the telemetry in the bottom right-hand side, right-hand corner of your screen, you can see that speed decelerating rapidly. Now, the 4 flaps on the ship help steer the vehicle, and one of the main objectives for the ship today is to demonstrate controlled re-entry during this phase of flight, this re-entry phase.
Yeah, and we have 6 engines on ship, but we only need 3 of them, the 3 sea-level engines. We will have that flip maneuver happen very close to touching down for splashdown.
Keep an eye on this as an indication of the flip maneuver if we can't see it because of the lighting conditions.
Have what we call a soft splashdown in the water. It's probably going to feel a little bit harder on the top of the surface of the water, but it'll look pretty gentle.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, we hope to have some more views, even of that phase of the flight. So fingers crossed that we can we can bring those to you. We are hoping to splash down softer than we did last time on Flight 4. Right now, Starship continuing to make its descent back to planet Earth.
At Mach 2 remains on a good trajectory.
All right, great news there. That tells us that the vehicle is traveling.
Well, it looks like the flap must be still attached.
Traveling twice the speed
And I would
of
imagine
sound.
the temperatures
So
are going to begin to drop. So maybe they made it through.
Traveling about the speed of sound, and then we will hear a call out that it is. That will be the call out that it is transonic, and then we will hear another
It's
call
dark,
out
but I
saying
see
that
a
it
moving
is
flap.
Subsonic, meaning going slower than the speed of sound.
Starship is transonic.
There it is.
There we go.
So at this point in time, we say transonic because certain parts of the vehicle, like the flap that you see on your screen, might be experiencing airflow faster than the speed of sound, while other parts of the ship may be experiencing airflow.
Starship is in the subsonic belly flop.
All right, so now the entire vehicle is traveling slower than the speed of sound, so subsonic.
So again, folks, look down here to see the change in attitude and orientation.
Just like us, we're awaiting a water landing. We are going to reignite the 3 engines to perform that flip maneuver, and we're basically about a minute and a half, away from the landing flip.
Yeah, the crowd's getting excited here as we get
10 kilometers above the surface of the Earth.
Again, just about a minute away from the expected splashdown. So we should see a lot happening coming up here shortly. We're currently having a view of one of the flaps, and it is a little bit dark on your screen, but hopefully we'll get some good views of the ship as it makes that flip maneuver and touchdown for splashdown.
Yeah,
yeah, guys, we saw that speed drop like a rock. So we're doing a belly flip right now, or a belly flop right now. That's what's kind of, if you saw the high altitude campaign, that's the unique thing about how Starship comes back. So we've bled off pretty much all of the speed we're going to. We're essentially at terminal velocity.
Starship is at 5 kilometers altitude. It remains on target.
5 to go. Coming up soon. Landing burn.
The flamey part's going to get flamey really soon.
Two kilometers away.
Starship is on target. Approaching landing burn startup.
So keep an eye on the bottom right-hand side of your screen as well. That will be the indicator when the Raptor
That doesn't
engines
sound like
ignite
happy engineers.
if we are unable to see that illumination ourselves.
Landing burn startup.
There we go. Notice the orientation change.
Get a cool view of the reflection of
Right here.
that landing burn.
We can see the water just behind the ship.
Wow. Absolutely surreal.
An incredible view.
That is touchdown in the water.
We have a ship
Oh, and it blew up.
What an incredible end to
It blew up.
Starship's journey.
Wow.
A live view from a buoy that we had out at the landing zone.
An incredible view of ship landing just about on target as they were calling out.
That was pretty
amazing.
spectacular.
We were not intending to recover any of the ship's hardware, so that was the best ending that we could have hoped for.
Man, I don't think we're going to be able to get a ton of extra video of the heat shield, but we hit the target. We hit the target.
Unreal, my friends, unreal.
We hit the target because we had these buoys placed in a pretty specific spot, so wow. What a day. I feel like that's what I get to say. What a day. I mean,
I wonder if there'll be video of the approach from the buoy that they release at a future date.
Off towards the end of our window, 7:25 a.m. Central Time. 33 to 33 Raptors in the way.
What do you folks think of that? What do you think of that?
Watched it come down right behind us. Watched it get caught, and that broke my brain for a while. I'm really happy we had coast for a bit, but that's first ever booster catch. Major step on the way to rapid reuse.
We have shared a moment of human history, of engineering history, and of spaceflight history together. Wow. What an extraordinary, extraordinary day.
Hey, starships were meant to fly, and it sure as hell flew today. So let's get ready for the next one.
We can expect that test flight 6 will be coming at a shorter interval in a sooner period of time than the time frame between test flight 4 and test flight 5.
And to everyone who supported the Starship program, and thank you to all of our future customers for your support.
AKM, I agree with you. 100% agree with you. Thanks for sticking with us the whole time.
Coast Guard, the Federal Aviation Administration, the government of Mexico, and
Yeah, Melissa, pretty extraordinary. I don't know how long you've been with us. If you were here for the recovery of the super heavy booster on the chopsticks. If not, it'll be on the archive here after the stream ends. You can scroll back to it. But what an amazing moment in history of our species and spaceflight.
Congratulations again to the SpaceX team. What an amazing launch and an even cooler catch. Thank you for watching, but we're going to leave you with an awesome recap of what
Here's a recap. There's the booster catch, super heavy. Look at that precision. That is amazing. I can't believe they had this angle. They had that angle. Look at that view. Mike, it's absolutely my pleasure, my friend. Thanks for being here. I guess that's the Raptor engine logo that they've got animating across. All right. Let's get rid of that. And go to that. And go to this. Mechzilla, yep, the chopsticks. what an extraordinary day. What an extraordinary, extraordinary day. Thank you so much, my friends, for joining me. I not normally at a loss for words, but I am at a loss for words today. SpaceX gets a lot of stick. Some of it I would argue that they deserve, but their ability to do what others say is impossible is extraordinarily impressive, and they do it time after time after time. Huge, huge, huge props to all of the folks at SpaceX that made what we saw today possible, and hearty congratulations to them on making science fiction science and human fact. A lot of work to go before this is a system that is operational, that is human rated, that can carry stuff to orbit, let alone onto the moon or Mars. But wow, we have witnessed, I believe, a very credible beginning. Thank you, Melissa. My friends, I'm going to wrap it up there because it's just it's just the background that they're running over on the SpaceX stream right now, and I will make this available as a public video on demand for the folks that missed it and would choose to spend time with my commentary. I'm sure there's plenty of other places folks are going to be paying attention to as well. And if you are catching this as a VOD or you're new to the channel, I would ask that you consider dropping a subscription on the channel. It's free here on YouTube, and check out some of the other videos, including some of the shorts that I produce. I am a multi-decade experienced aviation and space print and broadcast journalist without my webcam on today because I had 2 hours sleep, and this began at 4 something in the morning my time, and nobody wants to be looking at that despite 1 cup of coffee. But yeah, there'll be more SpaceX coverage, I can assure you, including videos that are produced about this program and the next steps. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to call it there, and I'm going to absolutely wish you the very best of days wherever it is you are joining us on planet Earth. And thanks for being such a wonderful, wonderful community. Until I catch up with you next time on Twitch or here or some other location in the cyber universe, I hope that you and yours fare well.